Hello and welcome to Enslaved Review. Some people have been actually wondering where is my Útgarðr review because the album already came out quite a few weeks ago. Well, let's call it COVID delay with this one as well. Here it is, the 15th full-length album by the Norwegian legends Enslaved. Those who have been following the channel for quite some time already know that I'm quite a big Enslaved fan. Seen it a few times live, always liking it a lot. Interviewed those guys a couple of years ago. You can still find it in the interview section, obviously. And I've been talking about the band's discography previously. So there's lots of Enslaved material mentioned here on Rauta as well. So obviously I'm gonna talk about Útgarðr as well. Now, I'm not gonna recap my previous thoughts so much because it would be a waste of time with this video, but just focus on this album because this is obviously the Enslaved of today, Enslaved of 2020, and by no means this is the same band that the band was in 1990s. I guess it would be safe to say that no other band from those early Norwegian black metal names beyond Enslaved has gone any farther away from black metal except Úlfur, which is nowadays of course electronic music and nothing to do with metal as such. Enslaved still keeps doing metal, but their style cannot be called black metal, not with this release anyway. Technically Utgard hasn't really changed that much from the previous releases. I mean, if you have been following the band's time since Rune album, which came already over 10 years ago, you're pretty much very much on the page, especially if you have been listening to albums such as In Times and E. So in the past 5 years, pretty much know what to expect. Now, if we take a quick look at this Metal Archive site by Enslaved, you can pretty much see there's both of these full lengths, quite a few, but also some compilation splits and etc. But Útgarðr is a 44 minutes of kind of a progressive Viking metal. One could say it's technically very close to bands such as Boknaga and also some other bands which have ventured far away from black metal to create their kind of own blend of progressive metal, AOR, extreme metal, etc., and then created something of a unique sort. And that's exactly what's going on with Útgarðr. I mean, no band except Enslaved manages to sound Enslaved, and that is both good and bad. Obviously, so many band fans who were fans of the early material are probably gravely disappointed what Enslaved has been going for 20 years now, but I have actually liked the band's later years much more than those early years. I mean, I do love albums such as Frost and Eld, for example, but I think that with Rune they started what I would call their kind of a third phase, and in my opinion that has been the most captivating phase of that all. Now, in certain ways, the band kind of started its fourth phase with E album, and that's where Útgarðr is taking off once again, because even less than before there are any extreme metal elements or aggression. Now, obviously with the vocals there are some parts of aggression still present, and that is kind of reflecting the past in mild ways. But when it comes to the production and this kind of a dreamy, kind of a progressive Viking metal music, it's definitely clear that Enslaved is doing something more different, more mature in so many ways, and the fuzzy kind of a furry sound is almost like a retro-ish feeling in so many ways. Now, for people who have been going on with Enslaved quite a lot of times, probably won't find Útgarðr that different or surprising, and might be very much liking the album. And same applies to me as well. Now, I must say, however, that there are not really catchy songs or memorable parts so much, apart from for the Homebound track, the track number 4, which is, in my opinion, the best track on this album. There's something that really gets you going, and it's kind of a sweet feeling you get from that. Also, this album reminds me, especially with kind of a, say, more experimental ambient-like parts, it reminds me of that that MCD, which wasn't originally released on CD. I'm talking about the Sleeping Gods EP, which came out in 2011. And while that is one of my favorite Enslaved releases, even though it's kind of a non-Enslaved like, Útgarðr is kind of a more safer version of that. So in terms of like that having a couple of really cool and catchy metal tracks as well as some ambient parts, Utgard is like in between those two extremities. Not as ambient and experimental, and then again not as catchy with its metal tracks. But there's some similarities with the Sleeping Gods, so in case you just happen to like it a lot, well, this is definitely a go-to album. I find this album satisfying, but still quite far from the best what Enslaved has been doing. Given that Enslaved is a band with a really strong discography, I would put this one somewhere in the middle, which means this is a good album, but still not among the best albums by the band, in my opinion. Very, very nice, very, very enjoyable album with a beautiful cover. I mean, there's something so beautiful with this kind of a foggy and raven-infused album cover that kind of fits the album feeling, the atmosphere so perfectly that I even couldn't imagine better album cover for this album. Really nice album overall still, while not being the best of the band. What are your thoughts? Put them in the comments box below, and should you have any questions, feel free to drop them. And once again, I want to remind that if you have missed my previous Enslaved interview from almost 2 years ago, take a look. It's an interesting chat about the band's past and other things. Well, at least in my opinion. And then again, I'm a little bit biased to say that. Anyway, take care. See you soon. More reviews coming your way.